Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, Movie Reviews and Connections in Mind, and welcome back to my reaction series to each and every episode of Season 2 of The Orville. Now, if you're just joining this series midstream, this is just my short-form reaction series where I give my thoughts on each episode as they come out, as well as some analysis of certain character developments and plot arcs that seem familiar and where you may have seen them before. So, with that being said, without further ado, let's get into The Orville Season 2, Episode 12, entitled Sanctuary. After a 3-week hiatus, we're back with the episode that features a nebula that the Orville goes into, trailing a Moclan transport ship that had a suspicious cargo of a female child aboard. And it turns out that there's a planetary system hidden within this nebula that holds an entire colony of female Moclans. Is an all-male society. These females have been smuggled out of their home system and to this hidden planet where they're allowed to grow up and live in peace. And now it is up to Ed Mercer and the crew of the Orville to petition the Union Council to grant this colony sovereignty in the Union and Union protection as a result. However, if they do that, then the Moclan race, the main weapons supplier for the Union, would leave the Union at that point, leaving the Union and the Moclans open to a renewed attack force by the Kalon. So all this is happening at the same time, and I just thought after 3 weeks, I just missed the Orville after those 3 weeks, but this is a great showing of what the show can be, where it's a great mix of both comedy and serious material. I mean, all the serious material of all the ethical dilemmas of whether the cause of these women is just, which I believe it is, but of course they bring up the question of which I believe that Star Trek definitely hasn't as much in past, whereas to judge other cultures by their own by human standards only, if it's a truly multi-race union, then there shouldn't be any necessarily one true set of morals if by their logic. So it's interesting to see how they're diving into that as much. And of course the comedy comes from the fact that the leader of these female Moclans, on her way to the Union Council or whatever, she eventually discovers Dolly Parton's 9 to 5 and labels it the anthem of the revolution of these women. And that's funny enough as it is, and then she ends up quoting it in to the Union Council. That was pretty clever as well. However, where I think that use doesn't quite hit the mark is when they decide to play it during the battle scene, both on the planet and in orbit. And while it's a good enough song and all, I just don't think it really quite works in the context of that scene. I mean, maybe it's just me, but somehow it just didn't quite feel right as the song. I know there are other great fight scenes in movies and TV shows that have eclectic musical scores in the background, but in this case, I don't really think that quite hit the mark. Nevertheless, I think overall this episode was really quite good, and I like the fact that yes, this feels like once again we're diving back into the Moclans once again in this season. I feel like while there have been many episodes that don't feature the Moclans, I feel like there have been a lot of these episodes that focus on them, or at least a not insignificant percentage of the episodes of season 2 have focused on Moclans, and it might seem somewhat dragging, I guess. I mean, to use a Star Trek comparison, in Next Generation there were a lot of Klingon episodes, but there weren't really a lot of seasons where they just dived all in on the Klingon aspect so much. So that might just be that's just my personal opinion, how I feel like I'm sort of Mocklin out this season, but I thought they did a really good job of balancing that, where balancing the fact that we're back with Mocklins again and kind of covering the same sort of ground between Bortus and Clyden, their relationship again, but they also balance that with a good story with these colonists of female Mocklins. So overall, I would say this is definitely a good episode. Maybe not the best in the season, but definitely strong, and I really enjoyed it. I think it was a good overall step. Really, only the one minor misstep I thought was that Dolly Parton song during the fight scene that didn't quite hold up. But anyway, some analysis as to where you may have seen it before. In the beginning there with Topa not getting along with the school children and feeling himself superior to the girls in his class. Not quite the same, but of course kind of similar to that, where Topa is similar to the character of Alexander in Next Generation, specifically sort of the character arc of his in the episode New Ground, where he is having difficulties in the classroom and he's having to learn how to get along with the kids at that point. A minor story in this episode, but a similar character arc there. The main thrust of this episode, the fact that the women, a colony of women from a society where the women are either excluded or badly misrepresented or even killed in certain elements of the society, and so they have to flee their homes in order to form a safe community away from all that and form a resistance or revolution per se, in that. Very similar, in fact, to an episode of Stargate SG-1 entitled Birthright, in which SG-1 finds a colony of female Jaffa who, under the Goa'uld Moloch, I believe, they're under his rule. The children born female are more often than not killed because Moloch needs male Jaffa in order to build up his army, and so the high priestesses of the Goa'uld Temple smuggle away these female children to a world where they're able to grow up and become warriors in their own right at that point. So there's a fun little comparison there. And finally, I would say that this dilemma of a forced relocation and whether to decide the fate of a colony between two peoples and a compromise being reached in the end. I thought that was somewhat similar to the Next Generation, the season 7 episode Journey's End, with the colony of Native Americans on the Cardassian demilitarized zone, and where the border ends up being redrawn. The Native Americans resist being relocated, but then they reach the compromise where they get to stay, but under Cardassian jurisdiction. Again, not entirely the same, but a similar sort of development between that and this episode. So those are my main points of comparison with this episode and what has come before. But what did you think of this episode? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Did I miss anything? I probably missed something here or there. Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to look for my reaction to next week's episode of The Orville, as well as my reaction to each episode of Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. The latest one is up now. I also do movie reviews. My latest review was for Shazam, which is on my channel right now, as well as be sure to look for my review of the new Hellboy, which comes out this week. All of that is on my channel. If you like what you see there or here, please like, share, and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for watching, but just remember, there is nothing new under the sun, and yes, you have seen it before.